Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take the image that you rendered from Maya into Photoshop and make changes and improvements to your image. So what I've done in this image that you're looking at is added a background through the window. You can see I can turn it on and off here. And then I also have over here all the rendering passes from Maya that let me adjust things like the color of the walls or the shadows or the reflections. So with my render passes, which I'll explain in a minute, I can do things like change the background color, the wall color, like this. So things that you can change after you've rendered, so you don't have to spend time rendering it again. You can go in Photoshop and change things like this. Like I could change the wall color, or I could change the painting itself. So what you're looking at here on the right in my layers are all the rendering passes that can come out of Maya, and I'll show you that in a minute. But what the rendering passes are individual elements in the scene as separate files. So there'll be one file that just has, like this one's called shadow, and if I isolate this layer just has the shadows on it. Or for example, this layer has all the diffuse color material colors. Or this one, let's see, has all the indirect lighting. So Maya will give you all these separate files and then compile them into one PSD file, and then you can take those individual elements like the shadows or the colors and tweak them because they're all on separate layers. So this part with the rendering passes is actually completely optional. You could save your rendering out as is, like I showed you in the previous video, and be done with it and maybe add in a background. So this next part that I'm going to show you is a bit advanced, but will give you a lot of finite control over your renderings. So let's hop back into Maya, and I'll show you how to set up a rendering for render passes so you get all these additional images. So back in Maya, if you're using Maya 2016 like I am, we're going to have to load the render passes option. So let's go to Windows, Settings, Preferences, and under Rendering here, under Settings, Rendering, you want to check this box that shows Show Maya Legacy Passes. And you're going to click this checkbox. So once you do that, and you may have to restart Maya, I can't remember. In this render settings, you're going to get a new box, a new tab here called Passes. And this is where you select which rendering passes you want by clicking this button here, Create New Render Pass. So when you click this button, a new window pops up that lists all the names of the different rendering passes. So I'm going to go through and select a few of them. So let's see, so a lot of these, let's say ambient occlusion, and you click this, and you can keep selecting them with control click. So I'm just going to go through and let's select ambient occlusion, diffuse material color, diffuse without shadows, diffuse, indirect, raw shadow, shadow, and create and close. And you'll see they appear in this list here. And I have two AOs, so I'm going to delete one of these by clicking this button. So I'm going to select all these, and I'm going to press this button to pass them, to associate them with the current render layer. And click that button there. So they move from this box to this box. And then back in common, if you haven't done this already, you're going to have to look at where this is, and this is where it's going to save the file. So by default, it may be on C drive somewhere or your main hard drive. And you can change that by setting the scene directory. So that's under Edit, Change Project Image Directory. So you're going to click that, and then browse to a location that that you want to put all your files. So you can put, well, here you have to click New, name your project, and then it's actually going to ask you where you want to put these files. So I've moved mine off the main system drive into my work drive, like this. And so once you click OK, that is where it's going to put the files. So you're not going to have to manually save these anymore. You're just going to click Render, and it's going to appear in that folder. So now I'm going to click Render, and I'm going to fast forward a little bit because I've also, in my settings, I've also bumped up the resolution quite a bit. Before we were rendering kind of low at HD 720, and keeping that same width height ratio, I typed in 2550. So this image is going to be much larger, and it takes a lot longer. And as you can see, I can move it over here. It doesn't actually even fit on the screen, but it's much higher resolution and it's more suitable for printing. So I've already rendered this out, but you guys should render this image, and when you when it's finished rendering, you can browse to that folder. And so in this case, I'm going to browse to the folder. So once it's done rendering, you're going to see a PSD with all these other folders. Actually, I'm going to go back here. And so once you have this location, you're going to actually, I forgot, you're going to go down here and change the image format. And let's use PSD layered. And click Close, and then you render it using this button. So once it's rendered, your folder with the images in it is going to appear here, and you're going to just open up this PSD by double clicking it. And then inside the PSD, which I've already opened, you'll find a PSD with all these layers in it. So I'm actually here. I'm going to close it and reopen it, and I'll see what you see. So the master beauty is this layer. I can click Alt and then on this eyeball to isolate it, and I turn off all the other layers, but Alt and eyeball to reveal it again. So I'm going to turn off all the other layers. So I'm going to shift, scroll all the way down. So I may have more than you do right now, but it's not too important. So I'm going to go and hide all these layers by clicking all the eyeballs. I'm just dragging over them like this. And I'm going to move the master beauty layer, and I'm going to drag it and hold it. I'm going to move it all the way to the bottom. So I'm sort of holding it here, and then I'm going to let it go right above background. And I'm actually going to delete background by dragging it to the trash can there. So now the only layer that's on is my master beauty. And so with this, the first thing I always like doing is adjusting the levels. So I go to Image, Adjust, Levels. And this little graph will come up, and I'm going to drag this to about here and this to about here, just to make the darks darker and the lights lighter. And so that's as far as that's the most I'm going to do with the colors. And maybe I want to change the wall color itself. So I'm going to left click, drag, and then drop it on this icon. And so now I've made a master beauty copy. And so if I go to image, adjust hue saturation, and then I click colorize, it's going to colorize the entire image. So now I can drag these things and change the color of the entire image, but I actually only wanted to change the wall. So I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to find a render pass layer, diffuse material color, and I'm going to turn this one on. And so now I have this blue, and basically in this one every different material is a different solid color. So I'm going to go to edit. Actually, I'm going to go to select color range, and then I'm going to click here on the wall, so or the carpet. Actually, I'm going to click on the wall here and make sure, let's say the fuzziness is at 14. I'm going to click OK, and it's going to select with the magic wand everything that's in the same color range. So now with that selected, without doing anything to this layer, I can turn this off. And then you can see back on this master beauty copy, I've selected all the entire wall. So now what I want to do is select inverse. So now I've got the floor and the carpet and the tables, everything but the wall selected, and I'm going to press delete. So you see, since I have this master beauty layer below it, you're not going to see the difference. But if I alt and click on the eyeball, this layer now just contains the walls alone. So I used this diffuse layer to just select everything that's blue, for example. And then once I had that selected, I went to my master beauty copy layer and I deleted everything that wasn't selected. So now I can turn my master beauty copy, I can go to image, adjust hue saturation, and drag this slider so I can change the walls only. Sure, let's leave it on this orange color. And then if I turn on the layer below it, this top layer masks the bottom layer completely. So it looks like I actually changed the wall color. So the other thing that I can do is let's drop in a background. By default, this checkerboard pattern means it's transparent and there's actually nothing under it. So I went online and I searched for a beach scene, which I have here. And so I'm going to press Control A to select all, and then Control C to copy it. And then I'm going to tap back to this scene. And then I'm going to make sure this Master Beauty is selected, and I'm going to Control V. And so now you can tell it's actually between these two layers. I'm going to move it underneath the Master Beauty layer. So now it's actually behind the window. So now I'm going to press Control minus on my keyboard to just zoom out a little, just so I can see the whole image. And then I'm going to, with this layer still selected, I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Scale. I'm going to scale up the image a little bit so it fits into the window. And then I'm going to drag this arrow around to sort of move it. So something like that would be okay. And let's just adjust it a little and go to Image, Adjust, Levels. And let's do the same thing again. Let's drag this arrow so it's about there, and this arrow so it's about there. How about there? And click OK, and then we can go to Image, Adjust, Hue Saturation, and just let's desaturate it a little bit, like that. And so simple color corrections like this are easily done in Photoshop rather than having to re-render it over again. The other thing I want to do here is make the carpet a bit darker. So I can show you, so if you go to your shadow layer and turn it on, you can see on this layer we have the carpet and some other objects with their shadows being cast on them. And this is going to be a quick introduction to your blending modes here. So let's turn your shadow layer on, and in this box that says normal, so with this layer selected, with this box that says normal here under layers, let's switch this to screen. And you can see that with screen, so I'm turning the layer on and off now. So this makes the carpet pop a little bit more. So, and then I can turn down the opacity if I want some sort of mixture between the original image with the shadow overlaid onto it. And so you can go through here and go through all the blending modes to see what you like. There's no right or wrong way to do things sometimes. There's a couple wild ones, like you can just, I press the down arrow on my keyboard to see what the different ones do. And there's a lot of different possibilities depending on what's highlighted in the render pass versus what the blending mode is. But let's leave this on screen for now because I actually still want sort of a realistic image. You can get a lot of interesting artistic effects just by using different render passes and the blending modes. I encourage you to experiment and come up with different effects that you wouldn't have come up with in Maya alone. One final thing in Photoshop that I always like to do is create a adjustment layer, a photo filter adjustment layer. So let's go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Photo Filter. And then this window will pop up, Photo Filter, and let's uncheck this box if it's checked and click OK. And so this photo filter appears, and let's drag it all the way to the top in our layers. And then with this tab open, if it's not open, you can click it. You can double click this icon to open up the options, and here it'll give you a list of different filters, sort of like Instagram filters that you can overlay your image with, but they're much more subtle. So as I'm clicking through this, I can just use the down arrow to go through, and you can see there's different cooling effects. So maybe I want to make this scene, it seems a little orange, so let's maybe leave it on one of the blue filters, maybe cyan, and you can see I can turn up the intensity or down the intensity, or turn down the intensity, and I want to leave preserve luminosity checked. So usually I add one of these to the top of the image to sort of give it all the same color palette. Even though there's different colors, it sort of brings them into one sort of mood. So once I'm done editing, I like saving my file as like an edited version. Like I keep my original one, but then I keep one that I modified, and I save that. And then I also I can go to Layer and then flatten the image to discard all the hidden layers. And now I have a flat image with no layers that I can save as a JPEG, so I can email it or print it, or you can also print directly from a flattened PSD. So now with the image flattened, I can prepare it for printing by going to image size, and you can see that the size of the image is 2550 pixels by 1434 pixels at a resolution of 72 pixels per inch. So what I actually want to do is resize this for the paper that I'm printing it on. So in this case, it'll be in inches. And when I switch it to inches, it's 35 by 19.917, but the resolution is only 72 dpi. So my paper is actually, let's say, a 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17. So let's just say it's going to be 17 by 11, 17 by 9. So one of the, with this sort of icon locking it, I'm going to make the width 17, but the height is going to be 9.56. And then I'm going to bump my resolution up to 150. So I'm going to click OK. And so the image itself, it won't change on screen if you did the math right earlier, but you're going to just be able to send this straight to the printer, and it's going to be a nice, crisp image.